Just us two.
Just us. Just back from Korea, almost back from Dublin.
We've been,
Would have been a crazy 2-weekers.
yeah, Brave Cities seems to be spreading out throughout the globe a little bit. So
A little slow in the Americas, but
yeah,
a little bit quicker in other places on the globe.
I don't see it really hitting a brisk jog, more than a brisk jog in the Americas.
Like Sebastian Maniscalco when he talks about running on a treadmill, you've got to run about the pace of a valet picking up a car. That's about how fast it seems to be going here in America.
Why do you think that is? Well, I want to hear about Korea, we all do, but why do you think it's moving in like post-Christian, even like underground Christian contexts? But
yeah, underground it seems like it's going quick. And I think we know that because people tell us that they found it. And so I feel like the Brave Cities is like a hidden manuscript, but the ones that are in hidden places seem to be digging it up. But I don't know, I've been thinking a lot about.
yeah, they did a conference in Korea on Brave Cities.
And we weren't there. We didn't even know they were
Somebody
doing
sent us a picture or something, yeah.
Which was great.
But then you got to go,
Yeah.
so.
Went got back a couple days ago. Still nauseous. My shins ache when I get jet lag.
I'm not allowed to do any trips that are over 25-hour flights,
This was
so I stayed home.
This was a rough one, but especially I was only there for 3 days, so a day and a half travel on each side. But anyway, it was the Korean people were great. The conference led by a couple people that actually teach here stateside, Korean leaders, and they put on, I don't know, kind of like it would be similar to like an exponential conference here, but for Korean folks. But I was kind of blown away by how many young people were there. For whatever the church is pretty new there, but it expanded really. I don't know if you remember back in the day when people would talk about fervent Christianity, they would talk about Koreans and how they pray.
Mm-hmm.
And my guess is the way that church expanded so quickly, because it's very westernized now, so there's just a lot of churches there now. Very similar, they even said as most of the world does, they take their cues from what they see in the American church. Sometimes I don't know if that's good or bad, but it seems like the world still thinks that we have it right, even though every denomination is in the rapid decline in America. People still come to our conferences to try to pick up our latest thoughts, which I actually think is a great mistake. But yeah, it was, what I found was it's still very Sunday centric. House church is on the map there, but it's not as on the map as a traditional invite your friends to Sunday church. I asked quite a few of the young people, like, what is the paradigm for people coming to faith? And some said their friends just come to faith on their own. One guy mentioned his buddy just got a dream that he should follow Jesus, so he does. And their other method is to invite people to church. So they it's almost like the Lord is going, I'll handle this. But they have not had a whole lot of paradigms outside the traditional, just like in America. So, we were talking about a basic missional paradigm that hit our country, 20, 25 years ago, in what we would call the contemporary missional conversation. So I'd say they're a little bit.
So you did some tangible kingdom stuff.
I did some tangible kingdom. I did some early year sent. First talk was about your calling is to be a sent person. So, and that's where the missional conversation started here. We had to just tell people, like, you shouldn't just go to church. Like,
you're a missionary of some sort.
You're a missionary. So that was talk number one. I did do some Brave City stuff on the second talk. walked actually through just the Brave City slides, and the conversations in the room after with quite a few young leaders and older leaders was that we've got to take a look at this. So I don't know, I thought it'd be an interesting thing just to talk through why it takes so long for basic missionary living stuff. I mean, I was thinking like before Martin Luther, we're 1800 years just rolling through the Catholic paradigm. And then Martin Luther reads some scripture and we go, oh, whoops, our bad, missed that. So, you know, how long does it take for people just to like see what is so seeable once you get into scripture or you see it in real life? You know, think about all the pastors that come here, because they say we just need to see it, even though it's like they're reading the scriptures day after day, week after week. And so I don't know why it takes so long, but it seems to.
Yeah.
You got any ideas on how to speed it up?
No, I don't think it can be sped up, but I'm not sure if, I haven't thought about this in a long time until this moment when you're bringing it up, but I'm not 100% sure that the metric of measurement is length or time as much as it is something else. Like where my mind is going right now is consistency. You might, if you listen to our podcast, you might remember a few weeks ago we talked about this contrast between true north and magnetic north. And like all our podcasts, we had almost no idea what we were going to talk about. So I don't clearly remember the kind of the trail we made or we blazed while we were talking, but what I do remember is that we established that there is a true north, and we've been given that true north. But I remember one example or one idea we had is our compass is like it's like this scene in the movie Avatar when they get into Pandora and all of their compasses in their flight ships and on their watches and whatever else just start spinning out of control. And it's really hard for them to find out where they're going. And so that reminded me of like the magnetic north idea. You can look this up, true north versus magnetic north. Magnetic north is always changing and it's always shifting. And it seems like if kingdom is our true north and Christ being the king is our true north, there's almost this, help me land this, but rather than it taking so long, it's more the metric that I think we have to measure by is it takes so much intentionality. Like this.
So you might even know what true north is, but
that's right.
You go, I don't know if I want to put in the work to get there.
So this story, our compass is off every day. And everybody can start to kind of do some inventory and find the things that throw their compass off. But I'm just not sure that you come to a conclusion, like you come to a solidified, this is where I am and this is what I'm doing. I think it's more of, I see that I'm supposed to cross the street and that's where true north is. And so I crossed the street. But from a young age, every point that I was given, every checkpoint, there was a test or a trial or an obstacle. And I've even like developed kind of a loose theory through the years that most people, that passion can get you through the first 3 or 4 obstacles. most people come to some sort of passionate um, expression and desire for Jesus in the kingdom around their late teens, early 20s. I don't think that's arbitrary. I think that's because that's when their brain starts to develop. They start to experience their own faith rather than their parents' faith, yep, or their elders' faith, or their church leaders' faith. Their faith actually begins to become their own. And passion wells up. It's almost like a time of romance. That passion seems to be enough to get most people over the first two or three obstacles.
Interesting. That does move them for sure.
And so they move towards that true north. But passion is not enough to hold you. Passion is so fickle. It's fragile. It seems to me like we could almost blueprint this thing if we had more time, but it seems to me like the next phase requires something else. I think we even talked about this in season 1 in the 4 orthos, because you have orthopraxis, which seems to, maybe orthodoxy and orthopraxis is fueled by passion. I don't really know. But you have orthodoxy, you have orthopraxy, you have orthotopic, and you have one other that I always forget. So where you live, what you do, what you know, and what's the other ortho? Whatever it is. But passion's not enough to keep you going through those obstacles.
But right thinking also doesn't. I mean, because I would say it's
right thinking's not enough.
The theological paradigms. I mean, when you talk about the kingdom, people go, "Yeah, the kingdom."
Yeah.
But that doesn't necessarily move the dial either.
So here's what I think. Maybe this can carry the conversation along. We were spending some time with some friends last week, and their kids, we didn't know their kids, so we were all catching up, and their daughter's a little older, and so she was asking us all the romantic questions, and she was like, when did you and Lindsay meet, and how did it go, and tell me about your dating, and tell me about your engagement. And then somewhere along the way, she said, when did you get married? And we said May 24th, 2008. And she said, why May 24th? And we kind of both laughed because it's crazy. A lot of stories like this are crazy. But somewhere in winter of 2007, December-ish of 2007, we both had this weird, unsure, still don't fully know why epiphany that we were supposed to get married on May 24th. Stuff like that doesn't happen to me often. I could probably count on 2 hands the amount of times I've felt like it was like, do this at this time. And what's strange is there were 2 or 3 really strong, really specific obstacles to keep us from getting married on that day. There was actually someone in our life who were, especially Lindsay, but who we were very close to, saying, I don't want you to get married on that date, and I don't know why. Just don't do it. And it wasn't like a spiritual thing. It was just an obstacle. It was like, I don't like that date. It was very odd. I could go into detail about that. That's not important. What's important is we kind of said, I think we're just going to get married on that date. And those are the moments to me that you get over another obstacle. Maybe not that specific one, like don't overthink that one, but the scripture says that he who is faithful with little will be entrusted with more. And so I don't think it's right thinking, right living, right practice, or right relationship. I think it's obedience. And I think the reason that it takes so long is because that idea of moving from one degree of glory to another is predicated on obedience. It's like a dad entrusting his sons with the things that he has cultivated and saying, look, bud, and I am right in the middle of this with my two older sons right now, of saying, look, bud, I've built this for you. I want to see you take it to new heights. And then they don't. They just kind of screw around and let it kind of, what's the word, like petrify. And so, seriously, like, in all honesty, I don't entrust them with more. Yeah. I'm like, that's it. That's where we stop.
More like, well, let me know. Let me know when you're ready.
That's right. That's it. Yeah.
And I sometimes I wonder if that, like when Jesus is talking about those that have ears to hear, there's also, I don't know why I was in on this, but a few weeks ago I got high-centered on the scripture where Jesus was talking about God hardening their hearts so they couldn't hear. Mm-hmm. And maybe that's that dad thing. Like, well, I know your heart's not in it, so I'm just going to, like, let me know.
Yeah, it's almost like you harden it so that things can get worse.
Maybe, yeah.
And you lay awake in bed at night in turmoil because you don't want things to get worse. I do think there's a posture of Jesus, at least, where like he weeps over Jerusalem, where he lays in turmoil because he's like, I don't want you to get worse. But I feel this way with Jude sometimes. I'm like, I'm going to manufacture your life falling apart so that you will come back and say...
Yeah. And you're putting some guardrails just that you're not going to let it get too bad. But
for sure.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I think there's a real existential discovery here of, is it that it takes so long, or is it that's not the right measure, that's the wrong measuring tool? I think it's here's passage over the first obstacle, because magnetic north is so counterintuitive, it's so confusing, and it throws all of your equilibrium off, your spiritual equilibrium off. And in order for you to stay centered on true north, it's not a matter of me just giving you the right compass or imparting into you the wisdom that is needed. There's gotta be these obstacles, and you gotta overcome the obstacles. So here's step one: cross the street. I just want you to cross the street. You see your neighbor, go see if they need anything, or go see if they would want to come to a cookout. That sounds kind of cheesy, but you know what I'm saying. And then I think no judgment, because this actually isn't a judgmental conversation. It's more of it's like a digging into the discovery of kingdom. And I think most people in my lifetime say, nah, I'm good.
Yeah.
And it's like, well, we can't go any further then.
Yeah, but I will say this, like, when you see, and you experience this, we all have, anybody that's in leadership, when you speak and you say something that's new to them, you see a passion come up. Like, and we've seen it when we present Brave City stuff. Like, there's like, almost like what you would refer to as like a burning of the bosom. And you observe it in their face. They're like, where has this been all my life? How did I miss this? But then you get to the orthopraxis, the dilemma. Okay, how do I change this? And I will say this across the board, different contexts around the world and in the States, they present different problems. And Korea is a little bit like America. They don't have like I noticed like in European context, UK context, they've been down for so long, there's a lack of confidence. Almost to where if you present a new idea, they go, just don't be too arrogant about that, because they just don't know if anything works. If you go to an Australian context, they're more like Wild West of that world, where they're like, don't waste my time. It's not going to work. The Koreans, they had the spirit like Americans do, like, no, we can make this work. But, presenting the gospel of the kingdom versus the gospel of Jesus, that was new. Like, oh yeah, we should.
Did it go well, or was it confusing?
No, it totally did. That's why I feel like certain contexts they will take an idea and go, okay, all we need to do is hear it and we'll figure it out. But like in an American context, I think the issue's specifically money and power. So why do leaders not want to do what we're doing? I think it almost always.
Well, there's subsets of both of those.
Or tradition of men. I mean,
you got to give the subsets, because some people hear that and think, oh, it's not about that for me. It is, but you call it security and comfort. Comfort and security are just they money and power masquerade as comfort and security.
Yeah, sure.
It's the same two things on a more subtle level. You might not want power over a country, but you want power over your neighborhood. So that's comfort. You want power over your environment and control of what happens in your environment. You might not love money, but you love knowing your 401k is safe.
Yeah, so you're willing to take a risk as long as we don't tap into.
That's still money and power. Yeah.
So I just think there's different contexts that you got to go, okay. And I think in a Korean, almost anywhere, Jesus was always dealing with the traditions of men. So that's your first, why won't you follow me? Well, because you've always been following these other types of things. So I do wonder though if it literally, like you started with, it's a timing issue. I think the early adopter scale, I think that's still, it'll move in Korea, because a certain amount of young leaders will go, we're just going to do this. And it'll move that way, and then eventually a few more people with a little bit less courage will go, we'll give it a shot. But the primary existing church in a prevailing model form, I think, is going to be the absolute slowest thing to ever move towards sacrificial life in the kingdom. So
do you think that those are kind of the two animals that you got to kill? Those are the two demons that you got to slay or cast out, the money and power, comfort and security? Because it does kind of feel like if you can take dominion over those two guys, the principalities and powers will be hard pressed to hold authority over
but I
your
wouldn't
life.
say that you can cast them out. I'd say that's the Babylonian spirit inside the church. So you just have to, as we say, you got to come out of her.
Come out of her.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. I think the prevailing model will always just be there, and God will use it for whatever He can. But I think the new forms of church, it's young men and women that just go, we're just going to go do this.
And that's a quick, important point. That for some reason, 15 years into this journey, people still don't seem to be able to either see or maybe agree with, but it's not even an agreement because they can't articulate it. There's always these same landing spots when talking about the prevailing model of, I would say, if anything, systemically ruled over by the powers. We might have talked recently about systems like the education system, or the system of mammon, or the system of church. And what we're always trying to say is, we know you're a great person. We know your pastor is a great person. We think that your worship experience is probably wonderful. But you know, and your pastor knows, and almost anyone that we've ever met with knows, there's some sort of ceiling here that we can't get past. Yeah. We keep hitting a wall, and we're saying that wall is a principality and power that has
You know, that wall's not going to move.
It's not going to move.
Yeah.
That's why
So
the
you have to
scripture
move.
says, "Come out of her."
Yeah.
It's not like, "Oh, y'all are evil and what you're doing is evil." It's like, man,
That's your illustration of the shepherd teacher creating the pond. That is beautiful and stuff grows around it, but the apostolic prophetic pickaxe the edges of that little pond and they get the water to run again. It's just that idea again. So that's why I think it's going to be very few that actually move. I remember a time, and I'm still actually, I've always felt conviction that I shouldn't have said this, but I was speaking at a missional conference that we were helping put on, that we had put on year after year, and it had grown quite large here in America. But it was the same people doing the same thing. And I just remember in the middle of, at the beginning of my talk, just going, why are we still meeting?
for the conference.
Yeah, even around missional concepts, because I still knew most people had not moved to the point of like a new norm. They've always been drawn to the missional conversation. They love deconstructing the old paradigm that many of them were still in.
It feels like
and they were still in. You know, they still were not getting to where they went, okay, we're going to actually change the way that we live.
Yeah.
And in the middle of all of my friends that believe what I believe, I said, why are we still meeting like this? Because we're not, we're still not getting there. And I felt like it came across too harsh, but so what's the encouraging word towards movement?
I mean, I think that I'm trying to like run through Jesus's life and his ending, and it feels like his promise always was, you can't make narrow paths wide. And I find myself disinterested in conversations, like a growing disinterest in conversations or think tanks or rooms of people who are saying, how do we make this narrow path wide? The encouraging word is like, hey, if you find yourself in this space, know that there's others that are in this space. They, for whatever reason, have been convinced that the full way of Jesus is worth everything. It's worth selling everything. It's worth giving everything. It's worth abandoning everything, looking like you don't know what you're doing, looking like... Because there's sometimes, man, where it looks like we're killing it. It looks like people will look in and go, wow, they're inspired. What inspiring lives. Those are few and far between for the McCall's life. Most of the time, not only does it look this way, I think most people are like, this family's a little untenable. Like, they're kind of off their rocker. They're like that river. You don't know when it's going to flow, when it's going to sit still, when it's going to rage. I was told within a month time period by multiple leaders that I respect and really kind of long for their approval in some way, shape, or form, that I'm just too unpredictable as a negative thing. Taylor, I think more people would want to work with you, but you're just too unpredictable. Some way, shape, some form of that. And I went, okay, well, I guess that's true. And that is sort of what marks us, is a group of kind of Wild West cowboys that are going after this thing that they believe in. And it is very unpredictable. It is very uncertain. So to me, I always find encouragement in, there's like not to use a cliche term, but there's like a remnant out there. And if you find yourself in a conversation or at a conference or at a round table of thought leaders that are trying to figure out ways to make this narrow path wide, I honestly would encourage you not to waste your time. I just don't think it's there. I think that what is there, this is what I love about the Brave Cities conversation, is the ecosystem can be wide and all can have a seat within the ecosystem at one of the tables. All who want to have a seat. I love breaking down like the touch points of owners, workers, and seekers of what's happening in an ecosystem where you go, we only have like 6 owners that are holding this culture, that are carrying the weight of the movement, that are guiding on some parental level. How's your table building going? I mean, it's all right. We have, probably 10 to 12 to 15 unique, distinct, intentional tables that have been architected through specific types of archaeology and artistry throughout our economy. And then you look at the seekers and you go, oh, well, probably on a quarterly basis, around 10,000 different seekers are touched by these tables, by these table leaders, by these intentional works within the ecosystem. So that is wide. But to say I want to make the actual
the people that make the movement,
I think is similar to saying you have 3 children and what do you have, 5 grandchildren, 4 or 5?
5 or 6.
It always changes because your daughter has a new one every week. But 5 or 6 grandkids. I have 5 children, no grandkids, and I go, I'm discouraged because your ecosystem is bigger than mine. That's so trivial and absurd of a thought, but that's what we do in the Christian story, is we do this weird kind of offspring comparison rather than going like, are the things that I'm producing healthy? Are they looking to eventually reproduce in some way? I mean, even Ryan, who wasn't destined for marriage and parenthood, was reproducing like crazy through the lives he touched, the connections that he made in the different spaces that he lived, and then his story living on through you guys.
That's the key, though. He just did life. I feel like that's the encouraging word. You can always follow. Jesus always like, I'm always going this way. So, like at whatever, just like you say with your kids, at whatever point you're done playing Xbox, and you want to just come with me, we'll go. So
that's funny. This morning before you came into the office, I told Linz, because my sons are out cutting grass right now.
Hopefully they're cutting mine soon.
And I had to retrain my 14-year-old how to edge with a weed eater this morning. This is summer 4. I've been working with them. And I said to her, I want to talk with an older dad with sons and go, did you think that your sons will never be able to take care of themselves or figure any of this stuff out? And I gotta think that's, like tongue in cheek, how like the angels that watch over us and the Father and the Son and the Holy Spirit kind of think of us as like these bumbling fools that are getting over one obstacle at a time. And it does feel that way, like doing life is the answer, but doing it with the intentionality of whatever Jesus says I'm going to do. So maybe that's the title and the landing spot is whatever Jesus says I'm going to do.
You have to admit though, like edging is different than weed eating, because you got to get in that awkward position and turn that thing, and then it whips all sorts of things up on your face.
Yep.
Nobody likes to edge, bro. I can see why he doesn't remember how to do that. So
I asked him this morning. He was weed eating a pretty big area yesterday at this community center. We serve at, and he said, my legs are all gashed up. He said, does weed eating hurt your legs really bad? And I said, before I answer that, bud, let me ask you something. In 4 years, how many times, just give me an average, do you think I've said, wear pants when you work? And he said, probably 250. And I go, what'd you wear yesterday? And he went, shorts.
Speedo.
And I'm like, man, this guy right here.
He who has ears to hear. It might mean more than we think, but
Yeah.
church is still moving, just moving a little slower.
So Korea, they're about to translate our book into
Korean.
Is it called Korean?
Yeah.
We should know that.
Yeah.
And then where else? Prague.
Probably, I think they already got it in the
Where they speak
Czechoslovakia.
Czech.
I think that's Czech.
So if you know anybody out there or any countries or foreign speakers / readers.
Has it been translated into the Hispanics yet?
No.
No,
Those are the first two. Did you speak with a translator?
I did. That's
That's
terrible.
That's so hard, man.
But my guy,
Especially if
my
we
guy
rock
Paul
with a cadence.
was amazing. We had a great
Yeah.
time. Well, actually, I was doing the archaeology illustration. I actually laid down on the stage, and I look over, and Paul, my
He's laying
translator,
down.
was laying
Oh, yeah.
down right with me.
Yeah.
And I actually stopped talking. I'm like, "You're actually laying down with me."
It was
like
funny. All my translation. No, I've actually been translated not in Korean, but in Japan, and then most of it was in Africa, and then I've done some speaking in Southeast Asia.
Did you ever try to be funny? Because it's really
They
hard
never-
to be funny.
They
with
get
translators.
my jokes in Africa.
Really?
So my African translator was the greatest ever, and he's like Paul. His name was Ernest, and he would do everything I did, like every motion.
Yeah, because I noticed Paul, if I got out
If
from
I-
behind the thing, he would get out.
If I threw my fist, he throws his fist. And then this was what's great, and I didn't learn this until after, because the leader there was a good friend of mine. When I would tell a joke that was clearly contextualized to the West,
Right.
he would change it, and he would contextualize it to
Really?
their context, and they would lose it laughing. And I was like, dude, I'm killing it.
Well, I
And
only
he was
saw a few
changing my
smiles.
jokes.
I was hilarious at certain times, and nobody laughed. But I knew I was hilarious.
But they don't really laugh in Korea. They're all stoic.
No,
and
that's not
honorable.
true though. Well, they are extremely honorable, but they were cracking each other up.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I just realized I ain't got I wasn't funny to them at all.
So to me, the idea is funny too. Our podcasts are so much shorter when Dangler's not on here. I think that there's something in this conversation that's sweet and prophetic and magnanimous around the very small moments of obedience. I really think, like 3 or 4 people just popped in my mind that are friends of mine in this context that are trying to understand this idea and are so far from getting it because of a simple moment of obedience that they just can't do. A simple moment of like stopping and speaking with someone or canceling a trip or not doing a certain sporting event. There's so much pressure from magnetic north, from the powers of Babylon pulling you in. There's so much magnetism. I think we wrote about this in the book. Did we write about the sword and the forging, the crucible of the sword?
No,
Anyway,
that was C.S. Lewis.
No, we had an example of, because I remember when it hit me, I was in Alabama and I sent it to you. I was like, bro, look at this. And you were like, we got to put that in the book. But I think the editors might have pushed it out. But there's just so much magnetism. Oh, it's I can't remember right now. But I think I think you kill that. This is okay. So we could title this.
Here it comes.
Well, we could title this "Lest You Take Part in Her Sins," something like that, because that's what that means. The interpretation and the understanding and the exegesis of "Lest You Take Part in Her Sins" is not come out of her, or you're gonna steal money from your grandmother, or you're gonna curse at a traffic light,
Or burn in hell.
that for sure. That's not what it's talking about. Taking part in her sins is
Going along with
the
current,
magnetic
just
pull,
floating
with the
everybody.
magnetic north.
Yeah.
Coming out of her is stepping out of that system or that world system and going, I'm headed towards true north. But to me, that starts with a very small decision of obedience.
Which we would use the word practitioner, which is just, it's a point of wisdom in your life where Jesus goes, it's unwise for you to hear things and not put them into practice. So at some point, you move to a life of wisdom where you go.
Did he say that?
Yeah.
That sounds like a good,
Well, it's a Hugh Halter paraphrase.
yeah.
The wise, well, it was James, really, right?
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Which I attribute all things to Jesus, but yeah, James says.
Oh, he learned it from Jesus. That's his brother.
It's unwise to just hear things and not do what it says, put it into practice. So a practitioner is a wiser person.
Yeah.
They just finally go, I'm going to bank my life on this. And then you start acting. So
It's good.
all right, back to work.